Yep.
All right, so welcome to today's garden class. Join us, ladies, come on in. So today we're talking about how to design fall gardens, so fall landscapes. And 20% of your landscape should be dedicated just to fall coloring, because we're a four-season plant. So you got a 20% dedicated to spring bloomers. And so that's the lilacs, the forsythia, the flowering plants, the flowering trees like red buds. Then you got your summer plants, it's the crepe myrtles, the rose sharons. Roses pretty much look their best in the summer. Fall is going to be what we're talking about today, and then winter evergreens. If you don't have enough evergreens dedicated in your landscape, you're going to look bare here in about a month. It's going to look naked. Not enough anchoring evergreens to kind of keep you going. And then the other 20%, you just dedicate it to whatever you want. If this is your summer home and you winter down in Scottsdale or Palm Springs or Tucson, dedicate it to when you're up here. Go for that summer mix. If this is your winter home, we have quite a few Alaskans. They live up there in the summer, they come down here in the winter, dedicated to the fall and the winter stuff. So that's what that last 20% is. I think most folks dedicate too much of their gardens to spring because they've been pent up baking cookies all winter and they want to be outside, and they come in and they storm the garden center and they almost get too much of that spring stuff. It's spectacular in the spring, but then it doesn't look as good in the fall. A lot of these can transition and do both. Let me start with the most important thing you can do right now. In the month of October, you should fertilize everything in the landscape. And if you do that well, it's going to bring out even more color. So I thought I would start with that, and then we'll go into the actual plants and how to use them, what they look like, that kind of stuff. So my name is, I'm glad you all are tuned in, Ken Lane. I own the garden center. My daughter's running the soundboard. She also owns the garden center, so there's three of us that work in the garden center. So this is a multi-generation. And then her grandfather started the business back in 1962. So Harold Waters started Waters Garden Center. That's how the Lane family comes to own Waters Garden Center. Well, I married into the family, basically, married to Waters. So that's kind of the backstory of the whole thing. We've learned a few things on what grows, what doesn't grow, how to make them grow. And so food is like the number one thing you can do. And I would say the number one food is this all-purpose plant food. This is an organic or all. Now the drip line. So don't focus on the trunk, focus on the outer branches. That's where all the feeder roots are that pick up the food and the water. So that's where you want to sprinkle it. Look, salt and pepper when you're all done. Okay? And then over the next 3 months, as it rains and snows, the plants are going to pick up this food. The reason October is the most important feeding is because it's going to pick up this food to set next spring's flower and leaf buds. So it's using this to create that. And if you don't feed them now, they'll be left wanting. The leaves will be smaller, they'll be yellow, they won't bloom as well. Your lilacs, they're not going to bloom for you. Not nearly as well as if you just simply fertilize them. So that's number one. We make a fruit tree food. If you're doing edible stuff, I guess you can't say edibles anymore. It's a different connotation. Like vegetables and fruits, we make an organic fruit vegetable food. So do your fruit trees. If you want fruit next year, really, really important to feed them now. Okay. And then for your evergreens, taking this bag home with me today, aluminum sulfate on your evergreens brings out that silver or that real blue tinge to it. If you actually rub a Colorado blue spruce, you rub the needles, that blue will actually rub right off. It's just a secretion that it throws off around that needle to give it that blue color. And it's aluminum that it's picking up. So if you give it some aluminum sulfate, this isn't actually a food, it's a mineral that the plant's going to use to bring out that great color. So if you've got green, it doesn't help so much. It's helping with the blue stuff. This gets most play with hydrangeas, hollies, things that like real acidic kind of stuff.
where it brings out that blue color of the flowers. That's where you read about this in Fine Garden Magazine, Horticulture Magazine, those things. But really, I find it works even better on the evergreen trees, the conifers, things that have a needle on them. So there you go. Fertilizer in 90 seconds or less. It's important. So you kind of want to do that. In addition, what I do right now while I've got my hand spreader out, I'm also putting down this weed and grass stopper at the same time. There's two things I really despise about gardening. One of them is weeds, and the other one is watering. I don't like watering. So everything is automated. It's all on computers. It's all cycled through. I've got 8 valves that run all my containers. Everything is on computer because I don't like watering. Now, some of you, your hobby's not gardening. It's actually watering. You like going out with the hose and watering things. That's not me. So I don't like weeding. This keeps the weeds at bay. Keeps them, just doesn't let them, it's a seed killer really. Doesn't let the seed germinate, put the taproot down. It doesn't let that happen. It will eliminate 95% of all weeding in your yard. This, if you put it on now, it will keep all those winter weeds. So we're about to see dandelions. You're already seeing dandelions show up. So it keeps them from germinating, keeps a foxtail, the one that you walk on, or that burr goes through your sock, and once it goes through your ankle, it goes out the other side. That's an annual. It only comes back by seed. So if you put this on, it just eliminates all those. And then I'll use this again right before the monsoons come. So usually the end of June, July.
Any new gardens, I'm recommending to customers adding this to the food. This is humic or humic acid. Humic actually generates more roots.
It feeds the soil. It feeds the worms and the things that live in the soil. And when the plants see that, they go, whoa, this has got to be pretty good. I'm going to root out. I'm going to send more roots out here. And so it encourages deeper, stronger roots. So anything that's stressed out, let's say from that heat back in, when was that? It had like 3 weeks of crazy hot. Some plants got stressed out. They were showing stress. They need more roots. Really, if you get more roots underneath them, they won't be stressed out next summer. So this I would recommend. Brand new plants, just new in the garden. It's maybe not up to size you want yet. This is really good for new plants because it's going to put out more roots. So main thing is food, and then some other little things that I do. So we went a little deeper than maybe you wanted on food. But you got it. I'll send you a handout on what I just said. And it breaks it down by all 4 seasons. What do you do each season? How about that? And then I wrote an article a few months ago, I think it was last year actually, on the top 10 autumn colored shrubs. Breaks them down, shows you colors, what they look like in fall. I'll send that to you. There's one other.
The
3 things are going to hand you.
The Podbean podcast.
So if you want those things, you may have your email. Put that down. You'll have a link from me this afternoon with those 3 things in your inbox. If you're already part of our garden club, it's not going to everyone. It's only going to you all and you folks online. Look in the sidebar there. You'll see the links already embedded in there for you, I'm assuming, right?
Yep.
Got it. So you've got them already. Okay, so fall color. We always think of maples. Let's just start with that one. These are starting to turn color right now. In fact, in the front landscape, that's what this is. This is a Prescott Blaze or Blaze maple, classic maple leaf, and they do exceptionally well here. All maples will grow here in the mountains of Arizona. Not all of them perform well. And it really comes down to wind. The wind tatters them or tears them. So we have wind tatter that happens. This one doesn't do that. It's got something about the leaf that doesn't let it get torn up by the wind. And it's the fastest growing of the maples that turns red. So we have a lot of naturally occurring, like aspen gold. That's a common fall color for us. Red is not. So it's kind of nice to spot some red things in there to give you that contrasting color. This is a big tree. It's a shade tree. It's a fast-growing shade tree. You'll get 3 feet a year on this. It'll easily go up to 30, 35 feet by about 20 feet wide. So it's a true kind of mid-sized tree. So it's not as big as a cottonwood or willow. Those are monsters. They're 80, 100 foot tall. This one rests in that 30, 40 range. I've got some very old ones in my yard. They're very established, and that's about the spec. That's about where they come in at, okay, consistently. They're not notorious for lifting driveways or lifting foundations. They're not mischievous that way. They're pretty kind, pretty easy to grow, and long-lived. Okay. Fastest blaze maple. Guess we got to cover the aspen. That's aspens up in aspens are in full color in the mountains. That's this guy. In fact, they'll be done here. They're one of the first to go, first to drop, and then you get this beautiful white bark that happens. So aspens grow really well. I get a lot of questions from the valley areas, Paulden, Prescott Valley, Dewey. Can we grow them out there? It's like like the 500 feet makes a difference to an aspen. Doesn't. It'll grow fine out there. You might have to put it on drip irrigation to keep it going through a hot summer, but they thrive. There's some beautiful specimens. Prescott Country Club, throughout Prescott Valley, there's some beautiful specimens. Chino Valley, it'll grow fine. So this one's a tall, not very wide tree. So it's going to go probably 40, 50 feet tall and only 6 feet wide. So what you're really planting is like a column. I'll use these frequently as frames. So if you've got a vista, you're on your back deck or patio, and you want to highlight Granite Mountain or Thumb Butte or some distance, I'll spot those on either side, and I'll just use them literally as a picture frame. If I'm forcing your eye to go here, or if there's a barn here and a shed over here, I'll just go boom, boom. They disappear, and your vista just is highlighted. So that's how you use these columnar type of plants, whether it's an Italian cypress or an aspen. Okay, grows really, really well. What's that?
One tree or three?
This is 3, so they mainly come in clusters. So we do sell some singles, but the number one seller by far is multi-stemmed or multi-trunked, because that's how they grow naturally. And you'll never get just one aspen. They like colonies or families. They like to be together. So they're going to sucker, come up here. They're going to get more. So if they're coming up where you want them to come up, encourage them to grow. If they're coming up the wrong place, just like a snake, just shovel the head, take it off, don't let it grow, just keep it in check. So there might be a little maintenance with this because it's going to want to go, but they grow really well. Let's say on a embankment where you had to cut out for the driveway or whatever, and you want to plant something up there and have them kind of come up through keep the hillside intact. It actually does that really, really well. So it'll pop up in different places. Fast growing, very fast. And then there's 2 kinds of aspens. There's a European or Swiss aspen, and then there's the Tremuloides. That's the one that grows up in the Rockies. That's ours. This is the one that grows. Aspen Creek is right here. That's the one that's growing in Aspen Creek. That's the one you want, not the European type. And then as they age, as the bark gets thicker, it gets whiter and whiter and whiter. So it'll actually become more pronounced with some age how white that bark is. Okay? This one's for my Californians. I brought this. Everyone wants a Japanese maple, and they just don't grow very well here. I've got several, but they need just the right spot. They got to be in the shade, out of the wind. I mean, they got to be in just the right spot. If they get any amount of sun, they're going to burn. They'll live, but you'll hate them because they're ugly. This is a small footprint maple. It's called flame maple, or amber maples. They're not tracking me. Am I blocking out
You're blocking the camera.
Yeah, my bad. Right, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. Look at me, man. Still not tracking. Let's focus on the tree. This one loves full sun. Thrives in wind. You can curse at it, give it bad soil. It's still going to grow. It's very drought hardy. So this one grows up to about Japanese maple height, about mid-teens to 20 foot tall. If you let it go, you can keep it trimmed a little bit. But it's most famous for its red fall color. thus the name flame maple. This will get more and more red. And just as we progress here, another couple of weeks, this will be in full, like, bright color. And then it's deciduous. That is, it loses its leaves. Okay? Deciduous, not evergreen. Great form, though. It's just drought hardy as all get out. You can't kill the thing. It lives forever. But I try to talk folks that just have to have a Japanese maple. I'll try to skew them this way. The ones that do that are happy. The ones that don't go, no, I want one anyway. You never tell a gardener what they can or can't do. You just kind of go, you try to guide them a little bit. This will be easier for you, but that's a good replacement. Let's see. I wanted to talk about this. It has nothing to do with the topic today. They just came in yesterday. For you Californians, again, you love your camellias. I'm a camellia grower. They are the greatest, easiest, they're just beautiful plants, most delicate flower. This is the only variety that will grow here. Most camellias they're not cold hardy. It's the winter that kills them out. This one actually has enough antifreeze in it to keep it from, it'll go down to, I think, 10 degrees, some crazy cold that we'll never see. And so I've grown this several houses throughout the county. And it is just a beautiful evergreen plant. The buds are forming now. You're seeing some buds here. This will start blooming in March, basically through March and April, a very long bloom cycle. So it's about the time when rhododendrons and azaleas start to bloom. That's when this blooms. I bring it up to you because we only get one load of these a year because of ag laws, that kind of stuff. You only get one shot, and they just came in. So if you like camellias, there's 3 colors. Actually, no, now there's only 2 colors. So pink and red. So whites are bought out. Thank you very much. Yeah. She's been waiting. One of our core students, customers, been waiting patiently for the camellias. And so when they run out, plants that's probably a 5-year-old plant. When they're gone, it's going to be another 5 years for the next crop comes up. You can get more of those in. So let's start over here. Let's continue down that tree path. There's quite a few trees, and you'll have a list in your inbox this afternoon with all of the trees. I just don't want to schlep that many of them up here. I just brought the core, kind of the magic 3. So maples, aspens, and oak. Oaks grow wild here. So up in the mountaintops, like Groom Creek, those areas, they're just wild oaks. Oaks really like growing in this kind of environment. And they're most famous for their red color. So when these two are done, they've dropped all their leaves, this just gets going. So oaks are very deep-rooted, very strong, slow growing. It's only negative with them. Strong plants. So gets this red color. Kind of see just a hint of color coming on. If you need a sturdy, strong shade tree, oak's a good way to go. Yeah. All of these, put them on a drip system. Water them once a week. It's more than enough to keep them happy. It doesn't take a lot of care to keep these things going. They're not high water users. Everyone thinks aspens need a lot of water. Actually, if you kill an aspen, it will be from overwatering. It gets root rot. So especially oaks as well. I'm going to bring up this. It does have great fall color. This turns a bright orange. This is choke cherry. But what the concept is, berry plants want to show off. So it's going to turn orange. It's going to lose its leaves. And you'll go, oh, so pretty. And then the berries are left. That is very striking through winter, basically. So it's a great plant. It gives you two seasons, the autumn and the winter. And the birds are going to love you because they've got something to eat. When everything else has gone dormant, they'll feed off the berries. But choke cherry is a great little plant. Very strong. I would consider it drought hardy, zero scape kind of stuff, because there's some native cherry varieties that grow here. This is related to our native choke cherry. Yes. Oh, yeah. This will get as tall as I am. It'll get probably 8 feet, 10 feet, something like that, kind of base shape. The same size as a lilac. Some of your bigger shrub, or a rose of Sharon. It's going to be that kind of size. Let it go. Other berry plants are, you probably know this one, your grandparents grew it. I'm trying to reintroduce it. It kind of gets a bad name because its common name is called firethorn, because you want to wear gloves when you touch it, prune it and shape it. This is pyracantha. Pyracanthas are very robust. It's evergreen, so it's not going to give you fall color so much, but the berries are striking in autumn through winter. So it does give you that element of, wow, when everything else is shutting down, this thing is still looking really good. So this could give you that 20% of the winter, that for evergreen, and it'll give you some color to look at in the autumn. So that's how I kind of design these. This is a big boy. It gets up easily 10 by 10 by 10. It goes, so you can trim it to a hedge. You can train it up against a fence. It could be a standalone. It's got a lot of flexibility, but I like it because it's very, very heat. It loves heat. Takes are cold. You just can't kill these things. So generally, we spec these into commercial settings. I think there's some areas out in the windier parts of the county where it can take that wind and that sun. It still looks good, kind of plant. If you've got quail, you want to have hummingbirds. They're going to roost, make nests inside this plant because they feel protected. It's a great little plant. But berries, and of course, probably the number one berry plant in the country, not so much here, but in the country, number one is holly. So, and it's got red berries. Anyway, we'll have some red berries on it. So again, it's evergreen, but the berries are what I wanted to bring out for you. Think of berries and grasses for autumn. It's a great way to design in things. I'll take one of these home and just put them by the front door. I don't even plant it. I use it as a floral, kind of just says holidays. There's something about holly that just says, I should have a Christmas tree over here too, and I should decorate the house. That's what holly is. Sometimes I'll take them home and just put them by the front door and go, it feels like the holidays, and it takes that kind of cold easily. Hollies don't like sun though. So that midday in June, that 10 to 2 in June and July, that heat wave that we had back in August, it would not have done well in the sun. In the shade, it thrives, does really, really well. So that's where you East Coast folks, if you've had them before outside, out in the wild, just out there, at this elevation, they don't like it just being out there. They'll take a lot of sun, but they won't take that midday sun. They tend to the tips burn off on them. Okay, so just kind of a little insider, one gardener to another. My name's Ken, we're just friends. This has worked for me. Probably don't make that mistake yourself. It cost you a plant. Okay, number one that's been in color for at least a month. Almost done. This guy announces, this is the native. You're seeing some plants out there in the forest or on the plains. That's what this is. This is sumac. Sumac, there's a couple different heights. This one gets about this tall, kind of like this. And you get it established, get it rooted, you don't have to water it again. It's that tough. So it is a true native plant. Of course, it is deciduous, so it's losing its leaves now. It's dropping leaves as it's bringing it up here. I hope there's some left by the time I get up to show it off. But this bright orangey red color, you can count on it every single, basically September, October. This is when that's going to go in color. These two I brought as an idea for contrasting. I like to use contrasting colors. As a designer with plants, I'm trying to change different textures and different colors. So these two I brought for you. This is barberry. Again, it's got a thorn. Anything with a thorn, it's probably going to grow pretty well in Arizona. So barberry's got a minor thorn, but it takes full sun. Brutal. Surround it with asphalt. It's going to like that. So the more sun, the better, and the brighter. It doesn't turn fall color. It actually is a fall color. It can kind of get this is its color year-round. It'll kind of get an orange hue just before it drops its leaves. It is deciduous. It'll lose its leaves. And then it's got an interesting structure. Even without its foliage, it still looks really interesting. It's got enough branches to it. But I like to use purples against golds because they just look good. So this will be shorter, probably about knee-high. It's going to be bigger, probably about head-high. Now I get that contrasting height, contrasting color. This is euonymus, a gold, euonymus. Comes in a lot of colors. I've got it in silver, plain green. A lot of folks like to use red tip photinia. That's good, but green, it's got such a dark green, it's hard to you can't put this with the dark green, it just doesn't show up. There I'd probably take, this also comes in orange, and it comes in gold. There I'd probably use a contrasting color in front of that, step down, and design that way. That idea for, this is evergreen, this is deciduous. Neither one of them has a fall color really, but they look good in fall. So they go with that kind of mix, that kind of design. I gotta give you folks that grow your food, that's a blackberry, and they have great fall color. So it actually puts blackberries on, so you can eat them in summer. It's still blooming, I can't believe it's gonna try one last time to put some fruit on, but it's going into color all at the same time. So it's got that classic red, orange color to it. But blackberries, berry plants, grapes turn gold. That's a good fall colored plant. Most famous of all of the fall shrubs is burning bush. In another week, this thing will be just starting to turn color. See kind of a purpley hue to it. This will be fire engine red. The whole thing. Spectacular. Like you turn the lights on at night and it's still glowing. It's that. It's so bright. It's really, really pretty. Again, it's euonymus. It's related to that gold one I just showed you a second ago. They've got the same genetics. This one is deciduous, loses its leaves, but before it does that, it turns this bright red to it. And I think this is very handsome, even without leaves. The stems, if you look at it, in fact, florists will take them and use them in arrangements because they've got this cork kind of texture to the stems. It's very, very pretty. So naturally goes up to about head high. Just think of it like this big. Okay, bright red. Burning bush. And I'm sure that's going to be on the handout I'm going to send you here this afternoon. Top 10 shrubs, that's one of the top 10. This one most folks don't think about. They think of this as a summer plant. This is burning bush. You've seen this out in the landscapes, and the flower hovers above the foliage, and it looks like it's on fire. It's smoky. It's a real thin, wispy kind of flower to it, but it also looks really good in the fall of the year. Now, this is its fall color, this is its all-the-time color, and then it gets kind of an orange hue to it. Basically, it's a purple plant. Now it's starting to get this orangey hue on top of the purple. So I don't really call it a fall-colored plant, but it really is. It looks good in the autumn of the year. A smoke bush, very drought hardy, and quite big. It's going to go up pretty easily to 15 feet if you just let it go. Some folks will keep it trimmed down to chest high, head high, but it naturally wants to go double that size. So very, very drought hardy. It takes the wind and the sun. Things don't eat it, like javelina, deer, so it's a good plant for your. Let's talk grasses for a moment. And the number one that everyone knows, because they're in bloom right now, pampas grass, a really gigantic grass. It's got those big white plumes. That's this plant. I don't have it in my yard. I think it's too big for most yards, but it's so pretty, it's the number one seller. So I sell more of these than all the other grasses combined. But it's just, I don't need a 10 by 10 by 10 grass with plumes on top of that. And it's short-lived. So I'm not downplaying it, just lives for about 7-10 years, and then the middle dies out, and just looks ugly. You gotta dig it out and start over again. So, or it just looks, you could date neighborhoods by the pampas grass. Just because you can tell the centers have died out, and that creates this horseshoe thing, it just looks ugly. And they've got such an aggressive root, they're hard to get out of the ground. So it's it's going to be all weekend to get the thing out of there. You'll need a jackhammer and saws, and maybe you'll get it. But pampas grass, number one seller. But I brought some others that I do grow myself. This is a native one. It's called Miscanthus. You see a red grass with a red hue? That's this one. It gets up about, just above knee high or so. Also called deer grass would be the common name, but Miscanthus, there's several varieties. This is a native, this is a very wild grass. Animals aren't going to bother this. Deer and rabbits are the main culprits that go after grasses, they don't bother this. It's just pretty. It'll turn straw colored here by Thanksgiving or so. So another couple months, it'll have this straw looking color. Eventually you're going to cut it right back to the ground. Weed whacker or hedgers or something, just as low as you can to the ground. Lawnmower I've taken sometimes. Just whack it down to the ground. It's going to hibernate underground and then come back fresh every spring. If you don't cut your grasses back, including the big ones, you need to cut them back or you'll end up with this brown and green intermixed look. It doesn't look as fresh. If you cut them back, you get fresh, new green every single spring.
And you cut them back in the fall.
Usually in the winter, what I do myself, I think the form is really pretty because everything will be straw colored. But eventually in January, we get enough snow and weather, they start to get beat up and start to lay over and they look mangy. That's my cue. Oh, time to cut back the grasses. So usually I'll do that January, February, March, sometime in there. Yeah. This one is called red sedge. It grows red. This is that's its actual growth color. I don't know why it turns red, but it's great from a designer element. Reds are really fun to play with because you don't find this color very often. It's just there's a great contrast with flowers. So I use this in containers quite often, especially the trailing like vincas, pansies right now, or violas, some of that flowering color in a container. It's spectacular. It will eventually turn brown, not red. It'll turn like straw. And then again, back in January, February, March, I'll cut it back, fertilize it, come back fresh new red, starting typically in March. April it's in full. It looks like this again, so it'll look really good. That's grasses. There's more of them out there. I just brought a few of my favorites. Grasses grow really well. I love grass, and that it adds drama, or just adds motion and movement out in the yard because as we get that breeze, they just move about. They're almost like dancing, like hula dancers out there in the yard. They just add a lot. They bring character. They bring the landscape alive. I don't think we use enough of them. All right, where are we at? Should we go to flowers? Let's go vines. This again is another native, grows wild. Out in the forest, you'll see this particular vine typically underneath the oaks. Some of the juniper, mainly under the oaks and stuff. This is Virginia creeper. It's just drought hardy as can be. Get it started, you never have to water it again, unless you want to keep it really looking strong or bigger leaves. But this is going to be fall color like this every single October. You count on this. It's the first vine to turn color, and then it will be deciduous. It does have a blue berry that will hang on for a while, but there's not many of them. Really, you're planting it for the nice, lush green foliage and the bright red fall color. That's really why I just want drought hardy. I want the native-y thing I want it to grow up the hill, hold the hill in place, and I don't want to care for it. That's Virginia creeper. Okay, you can grow it up trellises, you can grow it up fences, or it can be a ground cover. Either way, it's very robust.
So in the summer, it's just green?
Green, yeah. Just think of this with green. There's some green. There's some green left on it for another day or two. It's turning colors pretty fast right now. Virginia creeper.
Do deer like it?
No, nothing eats it. Nothing eats it. That's why it's so.
And how tall does it get?
If you let it go, if you trained it, you could easily go 10 feet or more.
How thick does it get?
It gets quite thick. So, yep.
But it does lose its leaves.
What's that?
It loses the leaves.
It loses its leaves. Yeah, Virginia creeper definitely is a deciduous plant. When it gets done with red, it's going to go lose. Next big storm, they're all going to be naked. Comes back usually April. It's starting to grow strong. It's fully leafed out and going, and then it's adding those new tendrils. So it'll grow easily 4 or 5 feet a year. It's like substantial. It'll climb a 6-foot, block wall in a year. It'll do that quickly. That's how to use vines, by the way. Some of our backyards, we got all these the panels or some of the new neighborhoods. It feels like I'm in a Russian block or something like prison. It's all just gray block, and it needs to be softened up. It needs to feel like a secret garden. And it needs some of that soft scape, living material to soften that up, to bring it alive so it feels like you want to be back there and let the dogs romp around and let the grandkids do their thing. Vines do that very effectively, and bigger shrubs can do that.
And the leaves will be gone when?
Usually for the Virginia creeper, boy, that's a popular one. I should have brought more of those. Should have a whole fall-colored vine. The other one that's just like that, that's deciduous, is trumpet vine. It's had a very large red flower on it, or yellow, mainly red, or salmon color, and its fall color is gold, like aspen gold, very pretty. They both drop their leaves, usually in October. Okay, maybe by the first couple weeks in November, they're completely naked, and they'll start to leaf out again, starting the end of March, April. That's when it starts. It kind of depends on the weather. First nice warm day, it starts to leaf out. You just never quite know when spring's going to hit here, so it gives you this fall start, and then it snows again. So that's kind of our spread some mountains for you. This one, let's talk about flowers. Well, we got to start with mums, I guess. Number one, fall flower, mums. Insider tip on mums: there are two types of mums. There's floral mums that are grown in greenhouses. As my garden friends, you don't want to buy those because they don't grow outdoors here. They're made for indoor floral displays, and they're fully meant to be thrown away, like a poinsettia. They're that. And then there's mums that are grown outdoors. So all of ours are grown exposed to the sun, exposed to the water. They're grown outdoors, so we can grow them outdoors. The flowers are a little bit smaller on them, but they make up for it in just sheer quantity. So there's outdoor mums and indoor mums, and we only sell outdoor mums here. So just be aware that that grocery store display of mums probably is not going to transfer outside for you. So these are a true perennial. That is, it's going to hibernate underground and then come back fresh for you next spring. But its bloom cycle is late summer and autumn. Mine actually blooms twice each year. Blooms late summer, then it puts on some more foliage, and then blooms again. And the beauty with these are javelina and rabbits do not eat them. They're out there exposed, and they might bed on them, but they're not going to physically eat them. So it's a good plant if you're out there in that forest interface where the animals are always there. Deer don't bother them, so it's a good strong perennial. The native one that grows wild, this is aster. It looks real similar, but asters are a little bit shorter. Not quite as, they've got more of a wild look to them because they are kind of wilder. The wild ones are white with a kind of sometimes yellow center, but we also have them in different colors. So asters are very robust, full sun, full, just hardy perennial flower. And again, the way I use it is kind of like the grass. I leave them up there, even though they turned that fall straw color. I'll leave them intact until the snow beats them up. Then I go, okay. Then I cut them back as close to the ground as I can. They'll come back fresh from the roots next year. Usually you'll start to see mums growing in February. In fact, many times when I'm cutting them back, I'm starting to see the new green growth coming up. So if you cut them back, it exposes them more to the sun, so it'll grow even faster for you. Same with asters. Okay. Anthus. What are my other? Let's go to the annuals. So all these guys are annual flowers. They live for a year, then they die. Perennials and permanent, both start with P. They come back year after year after year. Okay? They hibernate underground, but they're going to come back from the same root again for you. So dianthus, there are some perennial dianthus. This one happens to be an annual variety, just because it's a brighter color. So the perennials are kind of pinks and whites. They don't have the striking colors. This one will bloom all winter long. It doesn't like the summer as much as it likes the winter. It's amazing. By Christmas, it's going to stop blooming, usually, but it'll have this green foliage. It'll just cut off the flowers, and it'll start to have this real bright green all winter long. And then first warm day in January, February, it's going to start to bloom again. So truly winter bloomer. Same with this guy or gal. Are plants male or female? The same as this one. Pansies. You folks in the Midwest, you're used to planting pansies in the fall, and you fully expect them to die. They freeze out in the winter. They don't do that here because we don't have a frost line. So they keep blooming right through winter. Where pansies fail is in the summer. They don't like heat. They only like cold. So the key with these are plant them now so they get full and chubby and in bloom. And no matter how cold, they're still going to have flowers. I mean, I had 2 foot of snow on my flowers last winter. We had a lot of snow last winter. And snow melted or brushed it off. They're still down there blooming like crazy. They were happy with that. So this is the time to plant them, is now. So you can get enjoyment. In fact, I'm physically trying to pull out some of my summer flowers right now. Like alyssums are looking kind of ragged. They're huge, but they look overgrown. You're out of here. To make room for some of my winter color. That way when it's really cold out, I can look at my bay windows, sipping my coffee, going, oh, I am a birder. Look at that. It's beautiful. I can admire a few pots of flowers, even when in the nastiest of January. And then this one is related to edible kale. This is an ornamental or flowering kale. It likes the winter, doesn't like summer. In the summer, it just bolts, just turns to flower. It's a very fragrant flower. In fact, the way we design these in the commercial setting, like hotels, we love these in front of the hotel because they're pretty all winter. And then when they do finally bloom in early spring, the flower is so fragrant, you're going to go, what does that smell? I love this hotel. That just smells so good. And so I like to spot them where people kind of gather because they look good through colder times and they smell good as I'm out there enjoying the spring gardens. It starts to smell good. And then and you cut off that flower. Sometimes it has pups coming out the sides. Usually I just rip it out and go, okay, that's enough. I plant my marigolds or geraniums or something that's going to look good for the rest of the year. But an annual, winter annual. And these two guys go really well together. Okay. You can garden it year-round here. This messes people up. They're thinking, oh, they're from Wisconsin. They're used to 8-foot frost lines. We don't have that. I mean, I wouldn't live there. Come to paradise where we can garden year-round. And we don't get hot like Phoenix and Palm Springs, the deserts, the Tucson's. There it just is so hot in the summer. Who lives 10 miles from the sun? That's crazy. Come up to God's country. It's nicer up here. It's kind of the best of all the worlds. I feel for you. So why are you here? You've got 2 homes, don't you? You got one here and one there.
She convinced me to move here.
Oh, family affair. Gotcha. Awesome. That's cheating. I don't want to live there. I like it here. I like my pool, but I want you to live there so I can visit you. Perfect. Yeah, that's too much. These two, this really gets its most fame in the summer, but I find the best flowers are in the fall. This is echinacea. It comes in several colors. I grow a lot of these. It is a true perennial. It will come back year after year after year. And if you deadhead this, it will form another flower, just methodically. So it really works well with deadheading or pinching the spent flower off. It'll set another flower. Now, right now, I'm letting all my echinaceas, all my cone flowers, gaillardias, all the things that have these bulby seed kind of things, I'm letting them go to seed. I stopped pinching them back, usually the end of September, October, and I let them just go to seed because I'm also a bird gardener. I like to attract the birds. And so I'll let them go to seed so that those winter birds that roam around, they've got something to feed off of. So a lot of your perennials are great seed sources for that. Okay. And then, that's a perennial. We sell this as an annual. It thinks it's a perennial because it's so hardy up here. This is snapdragon. It reseeds across the yard. Comes in a lot of different colors. Animals don't eat either one of these. So I don't know, this looks delicious. I want a little ranch dressing and try some, but it's got some sap or something in it that makes it bitter where they don't like it. So they won't eat snapdragons. They will eat this one. I love that one, so be careful. If you got javelina, they'll eat this one. They won't eat this one. So I'll keep this up where they can't get to it on decks or in the back patios, but I would never put this in my front yard where packs of javelina roam around. This one I do. So it's fine with that. Dianthus they don't eat. They're fine with that. I don't need this. So this one we sell as an annual, but it usually, really I would really call it a biannual. It goes for a couple of years and it starts to get overgrown and kind of just, it loses its luster. So I'll rip it up and put a new one in. I mean, for $10 you can have a new one. We live in America. I'm not going to live with old and ugly. I want something nice that looks good, especially where I'm out entertaining a lot. I want to have nicer stuff. So I'll replace them every couple of years. Snaps. And this one, I think looks, this is, your grandparents called this coral bells. It's got a flower that comes up, kind of has this coral belly kind of shape, lots of them. But really you're planting it for that kind of foliage. That's what you're after. And so we've got them in a lot of colors, from chocolate to bright greens to yellows to golds to copper colors. I just brought this one because it's purple, and it goes with that. They just go there, good contrasting. So good perennial. I use this often in containers as my anchor, so I don't have to put all new flowers in every year. Usually I'll have an anchor of some sort, and then I'll accessorize with annual flowers. Because annuals just, they bloom better than anything else. Perennials are great, but they're high maintenance. I got to deadhead it. Or they bloom, they flame out in about 6 weeks and they're just green. I want 6 months of color, not 6 weeks. And so I'll use this as the anchor, and then I'll accessorize with pansies. I mean, this will go great. That just looks good together. That's a classic design. So the other way I use this as an underplanting, it looks unnatural to plant a tree and then have that rock you have across the yard go right up to the trunk. That is not the way God intended plants to grow. Groupings or companion plants. This is so robust that I can plant this where the drip emitter is for the tree, and it will take the same water cycle that the tree does. It'll take sun as it's young, and then as that tree grows, it'll take full shade. So it flexes with the size, and it'll take that same kind of water pattern. So now it looks like my trees are erupting from the landscape through things like that. It just looks good. And this will stay, it's mostly evergreen. Last year it wasn't, because there was so much snow. It kind of hibernated underground for like 3 weeks. I just cut it back, fertilized it, came right back with a vengeance. But most milder type of years, it keeps its foliage. Okay, so I'd say pseudo-evergreen. It wants to be evergreen if it's allowed to, and winter only gets down to the teens, it'll say evergreen. As soon as you drop in those single digits or below zero, it's going to go, I'm going to nap down here for a bit till it warms up, and it'll come back again. Okay? I think I've covered all the plant stuff. Oh, evergreens. I think we don't put evergreens into that autumn mix. I think some of the silvers look really good. So go ahead and ask a question while I pull these out.
Does that stuff you just talked about stay low?
Yes, very low. The hoopra or coral bells stays very low. This is mature. Maybe it can get this. I've had them get this big. Maybe it's basically ankle high, and then the flowers will hover about another foot above the foliage. That's another one. If you deadhead or pinch those flowers off, it'll send up hundreds of them. Literally hundreds of flowers. It's crazy. But really, that's what you're after, right there, foliage. I brought this example, just if we're talking about, okay, here, put these guys here. I like the color silver in autumn, because so many of these colors go with, what do I got? That just goes together. It looks good together. And so you can plant these silvery type of blue colored plant evergreens and use them to contrast. They'll actually bring out more of that beauty in your autumn landscapes. And then it will carry you over through winter. This is your core. You need 20% of your landscape dedicated to evergreens. I brought this one. This is the statehood tree in the courthouse. It looks innocent. That one was planted literally over 100 years ago. It's a 100-year-old tree, and it's now, 80 feet tall and massive, but it started out like this. This is Atlas cedar. Anytime you hear the word cedar, you know you got a good plant for here. So they don't get chubby in a pot. They need to be in the ground, and they'll root out that first year, and then the next year after that, it just starts pushing these big, long, swooping branches out, and every one of them is this bright blue, silver color. Very draw hardy. This one I use, this is Deodar cedar is probably the biggest tree that we grow here, fastest growing evergreen. I don't plant it in my yard because it's too big. I don't need an 80-foot by 25-foot tree in my yard. I just don't need, that's too big. I want more plants than just that one Deodar cedar. This is related to, this is called feeling blue cedar, where I like this one. It's a ground cover. It's a weeping type of form. So it tends to spill over raised beds. I like it around ponds. It kind of spills over through rocks. It kind of spills through boulders, that kind of stuff. But it still gives you that same kind of blue. It's got the same foliage as Deodar cedar, that gigantic one, but it doesn't get big. It flows and grows sideways. From a designer element, it's kind of fun to play with. It grows really well in containers, raised beds, those stairs, in pots, up to your pillars of your front door. That's how you play with that. And this is birds. It's slow grower. It's slow, painfully. Yeah. Like this is this year's growth. Was that 8 inches? It's probably realistic. So same with this one. See, this one's even slower. This is maybe 4 inches of growth this year. This is bird's nest spruce. It's a dwarf globe spruce. It's related to Colorado spruce, but it doesn't grow in a pyramid. It grows in a ball. So this you could easily incorporate into a container, into a flower bed. You just want something green to hold you down. So sometimes flowers look pretty bad in the winter. This could be an anchor that helps you keep it looking good. It's that blue color. It's a great contrast with some of your other fall colors. Just kind of incorporating that idea for you. I could have brought Colorado spruce over. Some of these pinyon pines have a great blue, silver kind of color to it. But these were easier to get to and unusual. So, all right, questions. That's all I had for you. Fertilize. I would say keep the weeds at bay. You're going to have weeds. Winter weeds are almost more insidious because all the sprays don't work in winter. So you have to hand weed them. You don't want to do that. Just put down weed and grass stopper and you're done with that. Okay. So food, weed, and then I would say one other, if you have pine trees, I'm telling my customers, I'm doing it myself, bark beetle is a serious issue here. And they like the taste of pine trees. So bark beetle is a little tiny beetle. It's a cute little thing actually. But he burrows into the bark and then eats the bark underneath, the cambium layer underneath the bark. They eat that. This keeps that bug out of pine trees. Keeps aphids off of pine trees. It does that too. But really bark beetle for pines. If you have pines, I would treat them with this. One application will last for an entire year. So you do not need to be a arborist to take care of trees. You can do it with cute strategic liquids that kind of help it. And you pour this right where the trunk meets the ground, right there, where the crown just right there. You don't put it in the drip line, you put it right there, and then it picks up, takes it underneath the bark, and then taints the tree, the sap, keeps the bugs out. Anyway, that's the last bit of fall advice I can give you. I think we got it.
On that, you would treat
on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would treat something that's already having issues.
I treat them no matter what.
That's a lot.
Well, I would treat the ones that are valuable. I mean, you can't do the whole forest, it's too expensive. But there's some, if you were to lose it, your property value will go down because it's so majestic. And it's going to cost you $2,000 to cut it down. If you've priced out, taking down a dead tree, it's expensive. So this is just an easy one. So things that are stressed, definitely. There is a line in the sand where if it gets too stressed, there's no bringing it back. But I'm stunned. Plants, they want to live. You give them a chance, they'll come back for you. But anything that you want to keep that's really important to you, it seems like the older plants are more susceptible to bark beetle than younger plants. I think that's a bigger vitality thing. So that's kind of how I would do it. Okay. Yeah, good question. There's something else back here?
Like on the maples when they lose their leaves? And how do you water? How often do you water?
Oh, good question. Yeah, maybe I can send the water guide too. But basically, it's we're going to water once a week through October. November, we'll start to power down our irrigation, but you still need to water twice a month. If we get a major storm, maybe you can cut one of those out. I discourage that because it takes a lot of snow to be a major water event. And most folks see a late dust and go, oh, everything's watered. It's like spit on them. So you really want a deep soak like you would do in summer. Water that much twice a month. And that will keep your plants very healthy. If you don't do that, your evergreens are more susceptible to damage. We'll get what's called tip burn or winter kill. The tips will be sacrificed. If a plant goes into a real cold event, dry, it'll kill off the tips, the outer branches of red tip Photinia, euonymus, boxwoods, all these guys. It can affect roses from the others. So I turn the irrigation on twice a month. Actually, I never power mine down. We've got it insulated enough where it doesn't freeze. So the key thing with your landscape is that backflow preventer. Some of you have this big mechanism, big piece of metal. It's called a backflow preventer. Now, usually put a green bag over it. Sometimes you'll be in your neighborhood, you see this green bag out in the yard, going, what the heck is that? That's for the irrigation. And so if that freezes, that's an expensive part to replace. So you don't want that to freeze. If everything else is below ground, most of your valves are under this green box out in the yard someplace. What I do for that, and I'll probably talk about this on the podcast in November sometime, when we're starting to feel cold, I throw a bag of mulch. I buy my potting soil or my mulch or my stuff I'm going to use in the spring. I buy it now, and I throw that bag on top of my irrigation valves just as insulation, because ground is not going to freeze. The best insulation you can have is soil. So if I'm going to use potting soil anyway, or shredded bark or whatever, just throw a bag over that. Those valves will not break. They're not going to freeze. I've gone sub-zero several times, never seen breakage. Okay, so yeah, good question. You'll turn it back on in April. So winter, twice a month, November through March. Sometime in March, it's getting nice. You're starting to activate those irrigation systems back on. Yeah. Yes, question there? Got it?
You answered it.
I got you. Perfect. If I can remember, maybe remind me, I can send them the water guide. Got a quick handout on that. Yes?
The weed stopper.
Yep.
Okay, like in my front yard, I just have rocks, but
Yep.
I have these weeds that,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How do you apply that?
So I do my rocks as well, because I know you got fabric. The weeds aren't supposed to grow, but silt and dust get in between that fabric and rock, and they come up in that.
Right.
And so I just sprinkle on top of the rock.
Throw it on top.
Just right on there, and the water will activate it, and it
Do
will
you
keep
water
those
it?
weeds
Do you
from
water
coming
it?
in. It needs water, it just needs to be activated by water within 30 days, if you read the directions.
Okay, so just throw it
We
on.
always get rain every 30 days at least, or more, or you can water it by hand, just activate it that way. But water's going to get it, that's what's going to take it into that silt layer. That's why the seed are blowing in. Guaranteed it's an annual, so this is going to very effective against annuals. And I find the more I use this, the better it gets at keeping weeds at bay. So you use it the first time, you're going, oh, there's a few weeds coming up. Oh. Use it the second time, there's less. Use it the third time. You get a regular pattern, weeds just don't even try to come up in your garden. It takes the work out. Yeah, I do the rock around the flower beds. Doesn't affect weeds already growing. Doesn't affect your roses. You put it right around the roses. Not going to affect them. It only affects the seed. They're going to come out.
So you would do it now, and then you shouldn't have to do it
Until next monsoon season.
once.
Monsoons, there's 2 cycles when weeds are bad. Now, through January sometime, they can be really bad. And then when that monsoon rain comes, like everything's waiting for the monsoon, they just take off. So that's when tumbleweeds grow the size of like VW Beetles. They're huge. So that will keep that at bay. So you won't be, have you ever tried to pick a tumbleweed up? They got burrs all over them. They're hard. One taproot, but man, they are sticky, pokey things. So goat head, that's my nemesis. Pretty ground cover. And you lift it up, it's got hundreds of burrs underneath it. That's an annual. It only comes back by seed. So you can put this down, you won't have those. Or greatly reduced. So yeah, timing, it's all about timing. Okay, great question. Anyone online, feel free to ask. YouTube, come on in, let's ask us. So we all set? With that, you have one question?
I have one question.
Yeah.
You talked about some of the hillside area plants that you recommend. We have a new build that we ended up putting some jute down in some areas. What would you recommend doing on a jute area?
So jute, that's a pretty steep grade. So jute is like this woven, like burlap. It holds the hill in place. Wildflowers, wild grasses, that's a natural. So we've got 2 wild grass mixes in there. One's a western native grass. So the stuff you see on the side of the road, you can grow that on that. Grasses hold it in real well. It doesn't have the greatest look, so it's a wild look. And it's not fire-wise, so you got to make those kind of calls. Otherwise, you're looking at ground cover like plants. The two that are most planted there, there's a creeping cotoneaster, or cottoneaster is how you spell it. They're down there called Coral Beauty. There's several. They get about this tall, and they spread like 8 foot wide. So a few of those do a lot of work. And they mix really well with ground cover junipers. There's a whole series of, I've got green ones, I got blue ones, we got gold ones that spread, don't get tall, that hold up the hill really, really well. That's one, take a picture and a couple measurements so we can help you space it out. We can help you. That's a good sidebar design help for you. Glad to help you. Yep,
I bought a couple of plants here last year and I transplanted them into terracotta plants.
Yeah.
The plants did fine. It's the terracotta pot. They just cracked in the winter.
Yeah.
That's common, so you just don't use those here.
You notice we don't sell terracotta pots here
I know.
because they break in the winter. So that's a reason.
So what do we use?
We use all of our clay that we have. We'll go outside. So it needs to be a good quality clay. So for you folks online, sorry about that. I know you're still there. We gave you a front row seat right there, like the student in the front row. Her terracotta pot flaked apart last winter. So as that water inside that clay freezes and thaws, it does this. It just destroys concrete, destroys clay, especially your Italian, Mexican clay. I've seen that melt in the rain. So it's just not going to go through the winter. What does go through it are your Asian, Vietnamese, very heavy, high quality clay, and it's high fired. So they're kiln fired, so they're very dense and they don't break. I've got some that are 2 decades old, still going. They're a little more expensive, but they last and they're pretty. So I like the glaze in that. Out in the winter, sometimes that's the only thing that looks great in the yard. The plants have all hibernated underground, but I've got my cobalt blue, looks great, or my red. So we can help you with that. Yeah. Don't make that same mistake twice. It's just an expensive mistake to go over and over.
I know.
Yeah.
And I bought the barberry, and I just left it in that pot.
Yeah.
It survived fine.
Yeah.
It came back in winter, and it was like great, and the pot stayed intact.
Yeah. All the pots that we have out here, small ones and big ones, we are purposely going to, I've fired factories because there's stuff. What happens is when the economy goes soft, they start sending them through the kiln faster. And so they're taking shortcuts. They're trying to save on basic natural gas. And so then they start breaking. Well, listen, don't do that to me and my customers. You're fired. And I go to someone else that's not taking shortcuts. So people are shopping here not for price. They're shopping here for quality, for style, for plants that live, pots that don't break. And as soon as we fail on that, we might as well shop at Home Depot. We might as well go out of business. So that's our competitor. So that's why we're doing what we do. Great class. I'm glad you all showed up. At 5 till, I thought there was only like 2 people here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for tuning in online. I'll let you all clap and then I'll let you go. Look for an email later.